Allow me to reintroduce myself. What's good, everyone? Matt here from UK Nets Fans, and I'm joined, finally, we're back with Aidan McConaughey for another episode of BK to UK, the British Brooklyn Nets podcast. It's been a minute since we've podded, but today is Monday, the 3rd of October, and today we're going to be chatting about the upcoming 2022-23 season. With preseason getting away literally in a couple of hours, we're going to take a little look at the roster, have a little quick look ahead at the rest of the season, give our thoughts on what's going on in Nets world, and much, much more. Make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram at UK Nets Fans. And check us out on YouTube, where you can watch back all of our full episodes. You'll find links in the description. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. Obviously, it was a tumultuous off-season, so Aidan and I have made the decision that we're going to leave that in the past, much like KD and Joe Tsai and Sean Marks and Steve Nash. We've moved past it. We're all gone. We're all just positive, and we're going to take a little look at the 2022-23 season ahead. We're going to have a look at the roster. We've sort of broken it down into a few different categories. So starting with the big three, then some returning role players, new additions, sophomores, and those that are just on the fringes of making this Nets team into the regular season. But Aidan, mate, it's so good to be able to see your face again. We're talking about the big three first. What are you excited about for this big three?
It's exciting, man. It's just going to be nice to see them all together, because that's kind of been delayed as well. Obviously, we thought we were going to see Ben Simmons at the end of last season. It was kind of a will he, won't he for a number of weeks. We thought we were eventually going to see him as late as the elimination game against Boston, and that was obviously scrapped last minute. He apparently fell out of his bed, couldn't get up just with the pain of his back. And that was disappointing. I think everyone was so excited to see Ben Simmons. So I think the fact that we're finally going to get to see him on the court is the most exciting thing. What I'm kind of most excited about with Ben Simmons is how he's going to play with KD and Kyrie. I think it's going to just free up so much space for those guys. I think KD is going to benefit the most. I think obviously there's a bit less pressure there, especially with him being a bigger guy. Having Ben Simmons there's going to be less pressure there for him to have to defend big players, big strong players. That probably played into the fact that KD just looked absolutely shattered by the time the Boston series came, that he was just having to do so much, never mind how many minutes he was playing a night, which was just insane. But just having that a smaller bit of responsibility taken off him will be huge for him. And obviously with Simmons being as good a playmaker as James Harden, having that back in the team is going to be an absolute blessing for someone like KD. And same for Kyrie. Obviously, Kyrie came in last season. There was a lot of responsibility on a guy that just hadn't been playing basketball. Obviously, we had Dragic last year, but to have a playmaker like Ben Simmons is going to make Kyrie Irving play like Kyrie Irving again. I mean, he was unbelievable last year. I'm not going to take that away from him. I thought he was outstanding in the games that we did see. But Kyrie Irving's best, in my opinion, when he can be that pure scorer. We saw it last year with him putting in some of the best performances we've seen in the Brooklyn Nets era. And I think having someone like Ben Simmons take those playmaking roles on, he's just going to be on a different level. And yeah, I'm just excited to see them all together as a unit. Because I genuinely think they can be better than what we saw with Harden, KD and Kyrie, just because it's more complete. There's more balance, and I think that's going to be really, really exciting. What about yourself? What do you think?
Exactly the same. I think, like you say, with the balance, you've got the guard in Kyrie, you've got the wing in KD, and Simmons can play big. There's kind of, he's a big lad. And there's going to be there's obviously been a lot of conversation of him playing the five. Will he play the five? But I think no matter what position you call it, you've just got all NBA talent across all positions basically now. And then you put that together with some of the role players we'll get onto. Ben Simmons' time in Philly was just, surrounding with shooters. And now we've got Seth Curry and Joe Harris coming back, which obviously we'll get to. But we are just in the perfect position to succeed. KD obviously is another year older, but he's still top 2 in the league when he wants to turn it on, when he has to turn it on. We saw in that Boston series that he's still that guy, but he can only do so much by himself. But the addition of Kyrie, who, don't forget, is looking for that max contract this year somewhere. So he's going to be incredibly motivated. All the COVID vaccine mandates are now squished. I saw last week that even Toronto, you don't need to have a vaccine to go into Toronto and play. So I'm pretty sure that's everyone. All good. He can play everywhere. And as you say, Ben Simmons, it's just people forget how good a talent Ben Simmons is. And like you say, he's just the perfect player to put along these people. And we had the chat. We had a question come through already from Sam in the Discord, who was just sort of a bit nervous about the chemistry that these three would have. And I think that's just being a Nets fan for too long. I think we're just nervous about everything. We always seem to get a rough shake and nothing really seems to break our way. But we're just, as it stands, we're just in the perfect position for success. And I can't wait. I'm just so excited. I've seen, obviously, that I think the big three are going to play against Philly, which is tipping off in a couple of hours. James Harden and Joel Embiid aren't playing, running scared, obviously. So yeah, it's going to be really exciting to see. I think you said that you're going to tell early on about this, about how the big three will play in this preseason game.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's going to be nice to see what Nash is going to do with these guys, because essentially, I don't like saying it, but he always said last year, this is a new team, but this literally is going to feel like a new team, because the type of basketball we're going to play is going to be really different. And it's an interesting comment from Sam, because I am in a similar boat where I'm not in the clear yet as to what's happened. I don't want to talk about it too much because we've been talking about it for months. But we've obviously seen a lot coming out recently in terms of the team bonding, the team being really happy with each other, which wasn't there last season. Which
going for pizza together, loving life.
Yeah, exactly. Going for pizza together. But it does feel just a little bit, and this is maybe just the Buzz Killington in me a wee bit, but it does feel a little bit smoke and mirrors, media friendly, just getting the media off their back just a little bit, being like, it's all good here. But winning changes everything, man. And I know we've said this for a while, and I just feel if we can go into pre-season, it doesn't even matter if the guys only play 20 minutes tonight or the next few games. If we can just get everyone clicking, looking happy, enjoying their basketball again, and get into the 18th of October and just start winning games and playing well, I think that's what everyone wants, really. And I don't think the drama is over yet. I think we're getting there. I don't think it's fully there. But yeah, as I say, winning changes everything. If we can get some confidence underneath us and start looking like a team, then I think everyone's going to forget what's happened. And I do think that's what's going to happen because of how talented this team is. But yeah, in terms of like the kind of next few preseason games, I just want everyone to be healthy, get ready to go, and yeah, it's just gonna be nice to see all these new faces, barring the few that are going to be out tonight.
Yeah, love it. I can't wait, man. I'm so excited. So that's the big three in a nutshell. Obviously, if you're following along live on YouTube, you can get involved in the chat and let us know what you guys think about how this big three will fare. We'll pin our favorite comments on the live stream so people can see them. But moving swiftly on to returning role players. I've got so this includes Joe Harris, Seth Curry, Nick Claxton, and Patty Mills. We've got a couple of ways we can go with this one. Obviously, Joe Harris missed basically all season last season with that ankle injury and a botched surgery, which is now all being cleared off. He's been sort of all in on practice, 5-on-5, fully ramped up. I've been trying to avoid that particular phrase on this podcast, but it's been made it on already. Seth Curry, who is going to miss the preseason game against the Sixers, is also recovering from an injury. Got Nick Claxton as well, who's seemingly the starting center on this team now, heading into year 4. And personally, I think it's time to step up for our Nick. He's got rid of the hair, so then maybe that signals a bit of a change. But I think he could also, him being such a great switchy defender, he could absolutely flourish being stuck next to Ben Simmons all week in training. And then we got Patty Mills, who I almost forgot to include in this, but I think he's going to be really, really impactful, both in a reduced role, coming off the bench, hitting threes, taking some of the ball handling away if needed, but nowhere near as much as he had been doing last season because of all these injuries. For beloved Nets coming back for another year and another go round, what are some of the narratives and some of the interesting points that you're seeing from the returning role players?
I think Joe Harris, for me, he's certainly the player to watch this season. Had a, as you said, really tough year last year, but it showed last year that we missed him because we just needed a guy like Joe Harris who could be so consistent and also just have that bit of extra height in the wings, and we missed it terribly, especially in that Boston series. So excited to see Joe back in the team. Clearly a massive part of what the Nets do, despite the fact that anytime you hear trade rumours, he seems to be the first guy that's brought up. I think that's just because of his contract. I do think he is slightly expendable just because of his injury last year, but yeah, it's going to be nice to see him back in that team, because talking about the two other guys, Seth Curry and Patty Mills, again, we're blessed with just how good a team we are in terms of 3-point shooting. It's incredible that those three guys are on the same team. Seth Curry, he was pivotal last year, especially in kind of winning certain games. Now, and that was obviously him with an injury last year, because he did play injured the entire time he was with us. So I think the fact that he's going to be back in, hopefully fully recovered after kind of the next few weeks once he's playing and training again. So it'll be nice to see him back in, and I'm sure he's going to be really important again. Patty Mills, you said there, like I do love Patty, but he just feels a bit like the odd man out this year. I don't know why. I think a lot of that's to do with the fact that Joe Harris is coming back in, and I know obviously, as you said, he had such a difficult job last season. He was definitely kind of doing things well above his pay grade, and it's a shame for him because he is so impactful, as you say, but he does have a feeling of kind of the 11th or 12th guy in the roster this year for me. And then, yeah, finally, Nick Claxton, exactly what you said. He's got a lot to prove. When is he going to take this leap that we're expecting from Nick? Is he going to come back a lot stronger? I don't know. I just have a feeling that Ben Simmons, Nick Claxton in the starting unit, it is going to clog the paint a bit. And I don't like saying that because I don't want Simmons to, as a lot of people are saying, when's he going to start shooting the three? I don't want him to do that because he's at his best when he's not doing that. He's a great playmaker, a great defender. We don't want that. And I do think eventually Claxton could be, unfortunately, victim of that, and they may have to look at a guy who can shoot at the 5, and potentially someone like Markieff Morris could be that answer in crunch time. But I love Nick Claxton, and just because of who he is, he just seems like such a great guy, and he has kind of had some big moments for this team. But it always seems to be a case of when Nick Claxton takes that leap, and he's now in what year is he in now? Is this his 4th year?
Going into year 4.
4th year. Yes, it's going to have to happen soon for him to stay in that position for sure.
It feels a bit like, do you remember when sort of the clean sweep just happened and we still had Harris and Spencer and Jarrett and stuff like that? And
yeah,
people were saying, well, if Karis LeVert makes that leap and he's, borderline all-star and stuff like that, and it just never really got over the hump. It feels a bit like that's what we're going to get with Nick Claxton. And, we drafted him. He's, homegrown and all that kind of stuff, and you should develop your guys. But yeah, it's just I could be out on Nick Claxton if this year doesn't go well. And I hate to say it because we're supposed to be really, really positive on this pod, but just give me somebody to be positive about my man. Otherwise, all that Miles Turner chat will keep sort of rearing its ugly head. Thank you for everyone coming through in the chat, and the boys are back. Yes, we are. So moving swiftly on, we've got some new additions. We got Royce O'Neal for a bit of 3-and-D. We got TJ Warren, who's come through again, injured. Won't be taken to the court against Philly. Certified bucket getter though from the Pacers, especially when you look back to the bubble. There was obviously the Pacers have basically hit reset, haven't they? They're kind of not really doing anything. So the word on the Twitter sphere was that TJ Warren could have come back last year and contributed, but it's just what's the actual point? Then we're not doing anything. You might as well just collect a check and sit out another year. So it's going to be good to see him come back. Edmund Sumner as well, who I watched the Chris Carino podcast with Edmund Sumner, and just feels like a really solid dude as well. Just absolutely hampered by injuries throughout his whole life, which seems to be one of the Nets love getting a previously battered guy and just taking a flight on him. But yeah, if I had a look at some of his highlights, and he plays with pace. He likes to attack the paint. So coming off the bench and going up against some of the weaker defenders on another team's second units, he could really, really feast and do a job, take some of that workload off our first string guards. And Markieff Morris obviously took half the season off because he got battered by Nikola Jokic, and we're hoping that he's going to be banging down low with all these big bodies and stuff. So the jury's out a little on here. I think the person that I'm most excited about seeing out of these new additions is probably Royce O'Neal, because he seems to have a huge amount respect around the league, can spread the floor. So I'm hoping, and please forgive me, but he could be like a good Blake Griffin, like that kind of plays kind of like a 5 sometimes, but he can stretch the floor out and really kind of make other people do their thing and also be committed on defense. Who's kind of tickling your interest from the people we've brought in?
Yeah, I know you're just kind of listing off everyone there. We really have, I think. Yeah, Royce O'Neal, he's kind of fine injury-wise, but the other three, man, they have had a rough time with injuries, haven't they? So be interesting to see. Like, they're kind of taking a bit of a risk bringing in 3 guys there that have had such a tough time with injuries, because we know Nets fans, we do not like injuries. Like, no one does, but we've had such a hard time over the last 2 years. And hopefully these guys can finally find a bit of health. But yeah, no, you say Royce O'Neal, Blake Griffin. I'm getting Bruce Brown vibes from Royce O'Neal. I think that's part of the reason why Bruce didn't get an offer. Was bringing Royce O'Neal in to be that guy who can be a good defender, but as you can see, can stretch the floor. And Bruce Brown started to stretch the floor, but Royce O'Neal, he is quite a consistent shooter. And he was fantastic in Utah last year. He was a really kind of solid player. So I think he's exciting. I actually could see him starting initially, just while Joe Harris kind of gets his feet back in there. I think Royce is kind of a guy that can jump in and contribute straight away. So that's exciting. Other guys, yeah, Edmund Sumner, and I don't know a lot about him. I have to be honest. I think, as you say, a guy who had a torn Achilles, we know all about them with Kevin Durant. Obviously, it's not an easy injury, and I'm sure he's probably not going to bounce back and be what Kevin Durant was. But I'm sure he can contribute. He's a good scorer, decent option. I don't know if he's going to play a ton. Again, I'm just not too keen on signings like this, because I think it will stunt the growth of guys like Cam Thomas if they do plan on using them over him. So yeah, not too sure about that right now, and do feel that it's just a bit of a flyer on a guy who's talented, but he's just had a tough time with injuries.
Feels like the kind of person you'd bring in if you weren't going for a chip. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you were like, if this was the Nets of 2018-19 and you got no draft picks and you got no superstars, it's the kind of guy you'd get cheap because you can afford him and then just hope for the best. But yeah, it seems a real weird thing. And like you say, it might kind of impact the sophomores we got on this team.
Exactly. It does feel a bit of a Kenny Atkinson guy. You're spot on. I do feel that he is that type of guy, but who knows? You never know. We've seen it in the past. Guys that you come in that you think are going to be end of the bench and they end up getting a role. Just look at Bruce Brown. But yeah, no, TJ Warren and Markieff Morris, two great players that have had good careers in their own right, and obviously they've both had injuries. Yeah, that question there, I do think Morris will be at the 5, just because of the way the Nets play and the fact they can stretch the floor. But do I want him going up against Embiid and Jokic? To be honest, there's no one on the roster that you want to see going up against Embiid and Jokic, just because they do make life so difficult. But the fact that he can stretch the floor will get guys like Embiid and Jokic out the paint, and then it frees up space. So there is positives and negatives to doing that. But yeah, just finally, TJ Warren, I do feel he's a KD guy. I just feel like he's one of those guys that KD's probably went, yeah, I'll stay, but these are the type of guys I want. And I just get the vibe that that's the type of player that they want getting. As KD puts it, he's a straight up bucket getter.
He's a bucket getter.
That is what he is. And I do hope he can find some of that form. Because he probably has the talent to be like the 4th best player in this team when healthy. And that says a lot. We've got a stacked roster, but he is just that guy. So we'll wait and see. I think he takes a lot of pressure off the kind of starters if he comes off the bench in terms of scoring. And we missed that last year. So some good players to bring in. But again, it's that injury history. I'm not massive on that. So we'll wait and see if they can find their health early on.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I think TJ Warren's got he's probably the guy on the team that's got the biggest gap between his floor and his ceiling. He could be absolutely mint, but he could just, pop a leg off in the first couple of games and we'll not see him again. But positivity will reign supreme on this pod, so he's going to be absolutely mint. Talking of positivity, that takes us to the sophomores, the second year players that are coming back for this Nets team. We've got Cam Thomas, we got Day'Ron Sharpe, and we got Kessler Edwards. Who do you want to start with? Pick on first.
Let's go with Day'Ron. Just because sometimes, especially last year, obviously when everyone had COVID and we were giving Cam Thomas the plaudits, Kessler Edwards stayed in the rotation. Day'Ron put in some solid minutes, but he didn't really get the plaudits like others. And I think what's a good talking point for Day'Ron, the fact that we've not actually went out and signed another out-and-out centre. I think that could kind of say a lot as to what the Nets staff do think about him. That's it, what Sam just said. They do seem quite high on him. They could have quite easily have went out and got someone like Dwight Howard right now to be that backup bruiser of a centre. But you never know. He's probably on paper the kind of best fit we have for what the Nets do try and do. He's obviously got a long way to go. He's still very, very rusty, from what we last saw of him. I don't know what type of summer he's had, but he is a big, strong guy who's shown kind of potential of stretching the floor. So we'll wait and see. Just kind of all these guys, Cam Thomas, Day'Ron, Kessler, it does feel like there's not really a natural step for them at the moment. Great players that are going to have careers in the NBA, all of them. But at this point in time, they're probably not on the right team, unfortunately, just because there is so much competition for places. And out of all of them, I'd probably say Day'Ron's the guy that can take a leap. But there's plenty of Cam Thomas fans out there that will probably hate me saying that. But who do you think is kind of most likely to break into the rotation this year?
Yeah, like you say, I just looked up how old Day'Ron Sharpe is, and he's 20. So he's still incredibly young. And like you say, he's a big boy. And if I was Nash or if I was the rest of the coaching team, I'd be just get rebounds. And that's kind of it. And everything else, you can just kind of react to what the rest of the team are doing around you. Just, be big and get rebounds. That's all we kind of need from him. We don't need him to finish at the rim. We don't need him to do all that kind of stuff. We just need him to be a human roadblock. essentially for other people, make people's lives difficult. Like you say, he is probably the backup center on this team. He's the only probably true center that we've got on this team. So I think I remember something from Media Day saying that they'll maybe give it till Christmas or something. They'll give it a little while just to see kind of how they're shaping up and what we're doing. But yeah, it's just, there's a lot of people saying, we should go for this guy, we should go that guy, chucking around Boogie Cousins and all that kind of stuff. But, Boogie Cousins has bounced around a lot. And I think you take as much of a flyer on Boogie Cousins as you do taking a flyer on someone like Daron Sharp. You could get an absolutely worldly season from an older veteran, but you could, get what we've had for the last couple of years where they've just been absolute busts. And, maybe Daron being a second year guy is just, better in the locker room, better around the training center and stuff, or just being keen and up for it. And it's all that chemistry and stuff. So there's one less kind of established name to put in there. So I think he's probably the one that's going to get the most minutes, as you say. I think between Cam Thomas and Kessler Edwards, it could be one of those where, like you say, we've got that injury worry about some of the people we've brought in, the TJ Warrens and, the Edmund Sumners and all that kind of stuff. Maybe we kind of split the minutes. If you're not in the kind of main rotation and you're not like a key role player, this kind of next step down almost kind of share the rest of those bitty minutes. So we're almost going to see like load management of your end of bench players, because they're all either young and developing or they're kind of managing injury. So it's going to be an incredibly interesting season. Sam's coming in saying he's not sure how good Cam actually is. Just go back and watch those Knicks games, mate. Go back and watch those Knicks games from last year where he single-handedly just takes over and just probably had one of the biggest shots of the Nets season last year, which is saying a lot. So he is that guy. It's just whether or not he gets that opportunity in this Nets team. Obviously, he looks like he gets along really well with KD. So KD sees something in him, and I'll take that over anything. Kessler Edwards as well. Obviously, he was starting for this team as a rookie. Like what was he, a second rounder last year as well? So he was. Yeah. I think that was more out of necessity. He did really well. I think he really did make a good account of himself when he did get those starts and get those minutes. But I expect those to go right back down. And, barring injury and barring, fingers crossed, Steve Nash doesn't give us another 43 different starting lineups this year, because that was the number it was last year. That's more than one every other game, which is crazy. I expect Kessler Edwards minutes to go way down. And that brings us to the players that are on the fringes. Obviously, this is going off the back of the training camp roster. So, a lot of these people aren't necessarily going to make it to training camp. Make it to the regular season. We've got Raekwon Gray, who's a second-year player. We picked him up last year. We've got the Yuta Watanabe, who I think is a really good pickup. The two-ways in David Duke Jr., who is incredibly popular on Nets Twitter, and I know there's a lot of discussion in the Discord as to why that is, but nice enough bloke, I guess. And Alondes Williams, I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. Also picked up the two-way, but the big news, obviously, is that the champ is here. The champ has returned. Chris Champosa, the big cheese, is back in training camp, which makes me incredibly happy. Do you think any of these kind of guys that are looking more towards the end of the bench are going to factor into this next season at all?
I don't know. I think potentially, I think you may be better getting someone like a Chris Chioza as that point guard on your team, who is, it sounds proper patronising, who's just happy to be on an NBA roster, rather than bring in a veteran guard like someone like, I don't even know if he's got a team, but this is just an example, Isaiah Thomas, who is expecting to play. Whereas Chioza, I reckon, could quite happily come in there and just do his job in terms of he might never play, but he might also come on and get you 5 assists, which is kind of what you want. So I do think there's a chance for some of these guys. I think on a championship contending roster, you're sometimes better having these type of players there for when you need them than, as I say, these veterans who can potentially cause a bit of disruption. They can either go one or two ways, bringing in kind of these veteran guys. They can either just be a really good locker room presence, or they can be a disruption. There probably was a few of those last year. I don't want to name any names, but I don't think there's probably a few that weren't happy with the minutes they were getting. And sometimes it's not the best personalities to have around. So, yeah, I mean, Watanabe was a great player for the Nets in summer camp a couple of years ago, and I was quite excited by him. He's kind of bounced around a little bit. He's obviously, I think he was with the Grizzlies, and then he was in Toronto, and he does seem like a decent player to have. I can't see him making a massive impact on the team if he'll still be here at all. That's kind of the problem with these guys. Once training camp's over and once pre-season's over, you do see these guys kind of getting moved around and then other guys coming in. But yeah, I think someone like Chris Choza, obviously we're slightly biased because we really did enjoy his time when he was with the Nets last time. He was a really kind of fun player to have around. But there's a strong chance that they've not brought in a kind of backup point guard, where maybe we thought we would side someone like that they're going to opt for one of these guys. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I'd rather have someone like that that's hungry to come in and try and push for it than potentially someone who's kind of at the wrong end of their career, just happy to be involved. So yeah, there's a chance, but as you say, by the time this probably gets put on Spotify, there could be another change, so we don't know. But yeah, nice to have a couple of interesting names there, though.
Yeah, I mean, I am not only am I on the Chris Choza hype train, I'm the driver, I'm the conductor, I'm taking tickets, I'm all in. You say that we need the backup point guard. We just need someone who's just going to keep the ball moving, take the ball, when Curry and KD and stuff are resting, we need someone that's just going to dish out assists, keep the ball moving, set up plays, run the offense and stuff like that. So I think that's exactly what Chris Choza can do for little spurts and stuff. And yeah, I will go on at length, and I really do hope that he sticks around just for my sheer enjoyment. Raekwon Gray, Alondes Williams, I have literally nothing to say about them. Unfortunately, I don't know a lot about them. I don't think they're going to factor in much. David Duke Jr. I love I do like the way that he said, "Nah, stuff your two-way. I'm going for an actual NBA contract." And then all right, yeah, I'll take the two-way, because I like that. I do really like that. And it just kind of shows that he's incredibly confident. Looks to be, really competent. I definitely think he's got an NBA future somewhere. I just really, really hope that he gets it for himself, and that whether or not it's that on the Nets, I'm not really too sure. But yeah, Yuta Watanabe, it's just nice to have someone with size. Like you can't teach size. You can't make someone bigger. So to have someone that big is just really good. So yeah, time will tell if he's going to make the team as well. But we shall see. I think that's a real good roundup, I think, of everyone. They've got some stuff coming in the chat as well. If you are watching us, listening to us live, hop in on the YouTube comments or the Twitch comments, and we'll see your questions live. But a quick one from me, Aiden. What are you hoping to see across these couple of games we've got coming up for preseason?
I don't know. Just because it's nice to see that they are just going with everyone that's healthy and able to play, and we're not just saying these guys are sitting out, because that is no fun, especially for how long we've had to wait. So it's nice to be able to see everyone. Things I'd like to see in particular, just a couple of points. Just Joe Harris looking like Joe Harris again. Ben Simmons looking like Ben Simmons again. Just these guys that we've not seen in so long, just doing their thing, because they are so talented, and it's what you look forward to. It's just seeing these guys play basketball, and I don't know if it's just with everything that's went on. It's just felt so long since we've just seen them play and more than kind of previous seasons. I don't know if it was just because of the kind of the COVID break last season and whatnot, but yeah, it's just been a long time coming, and it's going to be nice to see what this team can do, and hopefully we see some minutes for these younger guys. Hopefully we see some minutes for the kind of guys that are fighting for a position, because that is part of the enjoyment of pre-season, that you kind of see these breakout guys. But yeah, aside from kind of that, just out of pure enjoyment, I think after tonight we'll have a really good idea as to what Nash thinks is his core rotation this year, because I personally don't know what the starting 5 is and the 5 off the bench will be. I couldn't write. I could have a guess, but it's probably wrong. And usually, from kind of seeing Nash in previous seasons, he does kind of show his cards pretty early on in these games, to kind of get an idea, especially in the first couple of quarters. So that'll be good. And yeah, just it'd be nice to start off the year by beating the Sixers, regardless if it doesn't matter or not.
Yeah, for sure. Like you, I just want what's advertised. I want the players that I want to root for on this team to play basketball, have a good time, and maybe pick up some wins along the way. I think it's going to be a bumpy start. I think like any team that's new, going back to Sam's point about chemistry and stuff like that, I think it's just going to be one of those things that it's going to be feeling out. But it feels like with all the stuff that's gone on over the summer and over the last season and stuff, it feels like every big player on this team has got that extra bit of fire in them this season, and that extra little, not chip on their shoulder, but that extra kind of motivation to want to do well. So I think that's what I'm most looking forward to, is everyone available, everyone engaged, and everyone kind of looking to do the best that they can. But we got to address the elephant in the room. We've got Spike that's come through, who, if you are in the UK Nets fans Discord, you will know Spike very well as the man who I owe a huge apology to, because he was way on the Nash is a terrible coach train before anyone else. I'm going to go down and say that. But he did say, do you think Steve Nash is going to be the Brooklyn Nets coach by Christmas?
Definitely not. I think he's gone. The only reason that I think that is, I think if everything didn't go down, there's a chance he'd be gone already. But the fact they said that they're sticking with him, they can't do it yet. And I think Christmas is probably a pretty good kind of time scale as to when they'll need to make a decision. And yeah, I hope they don't get rid of him at Christmas, because that's just cruel. But at the same time, I think there's probably the time that they'll potentially make a decision as if he's good enough or not. But it just depends. I mean, you know what it's like. You can put a string of good performances together, regardless of how good a coach he is. It sometimes doesn't matter. They can still get wins purely on how good they are in terms of individuals. But yeah, just something isn't right there, and you just have to think that there's potentially some form of agreement in there with Kevin Durant as to how soon can they make a change. And you just think if it's not Nash that has to go, then who is it, and then things might start getting messy. So I think we're now at a point now where it's soon they're gonna start pointing fingers if things don't go exactly how they want, and it's probably going to be Nash that's gonna go. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. It's not like when you're a player and you have a run of bad games, but you can shoot, and on your day you're really good and all that kind of stuff. It's just that, from what I gather, and there's people that are a lot cleverer than me that kind of can really break down his shortcomings and stuff. It's just not one of those things that he's ever shown he can do. Is be really creative coming out of a set play, or some kind of system that he can only run and stuff. Like, the only time when we did our best is when he had Mike D'Antoni whispering in his ear, and that's, I could be a good coach if Mike D'Antoni's telling me what to do, because I'm just telling them to tell my players to do what Mike D'Antoni says. But yeah, I don't know if he'll be gone. I think it could be like, he's almost on contract year as well. He's on a 1-year contract. It could be, if we don't make it, past the second round of the playoffs or something. But we shall see. It's just who would replace him, I think, is if there were people lining up. Ime Udoka's now a free agent, but do you want that dirty Gertie back in the organization? No, you don't. Mike D'Antoni, I think, is still retired. I don't know, but could be without. I don't want Mark Jackson coming through, although KD seems to like him. So it's just like, it's all well and good saying, Nash out, but it's who you replace him with. So that's why I'm still a little bit on the fence as to what we're going to do. But yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. Obviously, it's going to be a long season ahead. We haven't actually seen them play basketball, but it wouldn't be at the beginning of the season pod without saying, what are your expectations this season? How do you think we're going to fare in a couple of sentences?
Oh, it's tough because the last 2 years we've just went all out and we've all said, well, they'll win the chip. And the thing is, you'd love to be more realistic and potentially say, if we get Eastern Conference Finals, we'll be happy with that. But that we all know that that's a load of rubbish. If we got the Eastern Conference Finals, we'd all be disappointed. So I think it's still the case that if Kevin Durant's on your team, you have to say they're going to win the title, and you just have to kind of have that belief as a Nets fan, because if not now, then when? People say it's year 4 because obviously we've had Kevin Durant and Kyrie, but it's not. It's going to be year 3 of this experiment, and as Spike has just said, sums me up perfectly. Championship or bust. It has to be the way this year. It feels, I don't know about you, but it certainly feels like this is the last throw of the dice in terms of chance to win. If we do win, then it's going to go on. But if not this year, then when? So yeah, I'm going to stick with it and say we're going to win it all. I do think we've got a good team this year. Is it better than the team that got to the semi-finals against the Bucks? I'm not sure at the moment. We'll soon see, but I'd like to think so in terms of what we were saying earlier with balance. But yeah, no, I will say that if we can get out the traps early and play well, then we've got every chance as everyone else. So what do you think? Do you think we can win it all, or are you being slightly more realistic this year?
Every year I've been more measured and more sort of cautiously optimistic, and I'm like, well, but I'm just going all in this year, and I'm saying, why not us? Yeah, that's how I'm a practice. It's just like on paper and talent-wise, we have enough on this team, and the balance of the roster is way better than it was last year in terms of pieces that we have. So why not the Nets? Why can't we just have one healthy season? Why can't we just not be absolutely obliterated by injuries or vaccine mandates or some other distraction? Why not the Nets? So I'm saying we're going to be top 2 in the East when the regular season is over, and why not? Let's go all in. Let's say that the Nets have as good a chance as anyone of bringing the Larry O'Brien to Brooklyn and having that parade down Flatbush and Atlantic. But yeah, that's what I'm going to say, and I think that's where we're going to leave it. It's been so good to come back and to talk about the Nets. It's been a long 7 months since we podded. And yeah, I'm very, very excited. I'm glad that NBA League Pass has refreshed. And yeah, everyone, thanks for coming back. Thanks for popping the chat off. And we'll see you next time. Take it easy.